It's probably no surprise with the amount of videos I've done so far over time that I'm a big fan of the James Bond 007 franchise, both the movies and the games. And it's a franchise that I've been trying to start getting into the books with as well. A franchise that I think is really iconic, that I enjoy, about a spy from England who represents England in a lot of ways, but also represents a lot of other things. He represents a caricature or an interpretation of the ideas of the original novel's author, Ian Fleming. He's a reflection of him in some ways. He's a reflection of things even like loneliness, things like trying to find a place of belonging, things like burying your problems to do what needs to be done. I mean, the James Bond character is extremely complex. Like, people look at him and they think, oh, this is just a womanizing guy who likes sex and uses guns and saves the world in shallow movies. I think a lot of people look at the franchise like that and they don't understand what it's really about. And it's unfortunate because one of the rights holders now who has control over a lot of James Bond, I believe, is viewing the character through that lens of a shallow character, or a shallow character, I should say, who can be milked and used for as many different money-making ventures as they please. And that would be Amazon. Now, there are some good things about Amazon. Some people just cringed really hard. But it is true. You know, Amazon employs a lot of people. You want to talk about how well? Maybe not great conditions, according to them. Amazon does give, like, very convenient access to a lot of products, but it's brought a lot of bad with it, too. Putting a lot of other businesses out of business and also kind of throwing their money and weight around, I would argue, like a bully in many ways. It sucks because it's one of the few options to buy a lot of things nowadays, but it comes with a lot of evils, I think. And Amazon is one of the people who now owns a huge stake in the James Bond franchise because they purchased MGM Studio for something around $6.5 billion. Now, here's where it becomes interesting. The reports right now, which are kind of hearsay, they're kind of rumors, and that's why I was waiting to talk about them for a couple days, see if more came out, are essentially that they want to milk Bond for all that it's worth. They want things like spin-off shows on Amazon Prime. They want things like and I'm quoting the articles here that have talked about it, woke Bond, like a black gay man playing James Bond, or a female James Bond, to which basically Barbara Broccoli, who is in large control of this franchise and has been forever, obviously she's the daughter of Albert Broccoli, who had the rights to these movies forever. She is essentially saying these people are fucking idiots, at least according to reports from different people who were interviewed privately, who have been anonymous, essentially. So however you want to view that is up to you. If you want to view this as representative of something actually happening, it's apparently based on interviews with more than 20 people familiar with the Broccoli-Amazon feud regarding James Bond. But it does lead us to a question, which is the James Bond franchise in trouble? And also, would you want any of these changes for Bond? Would you want spin-offs? Would you want black James Bond? Would you want gay James Bond? Would you want woman James Bond? For me personally, there are times where I do think you can change certain aspects of a character and it doesn't change anything, or it changes very little. For example, Commissioner Gordon, in the Batman, played by Jeffrey Wright, does an amazing job. Him being black doesn't really have anything to do with who that character is in any way. And I don't say black like it's a bad thing. I'm just saying he's, stereotypically just been a white man. But I would say there, it's like, this didn't really change anything. This didn't affect anything. There's nothing really being gained or lost by changing that character look. Anything more than if you had a really tan, sounds rude, white man playing the role, or a really pasty white man playing the role. It's just, that's Commissioner Gordon. When it comes down to it with James Bond, though, I feel like this is something where it gets into a very big debate on should Bond be changed. Now, the Daniel Craig Bond already changed quite a bit in some ways from previous incarnations. I personally believe that it still held the spirit of James Bond and worked for a new interpretation, but a lot of people didn't even like those changes. They wanted James Bond to remain the way that he essentially had from Dr. No all the way through Die Another Day, and I understand and respect that aspect of it as well. For me personally, this becomes a question of, should Bond change in these ways? I've wanted to make a video for a while of, does James Bond need to be a man? Or does James Bond need to be white? One of the main reasons I didn't do that is because as soon as you bring up these topics, you get hit with these same old buzzwords. Oh, you're racist, you're homophobic, you don't like, you're sexist, you're misogynist, whatever. But they don't understand that you can have James Bond be this character, and he can have character traits that are neutral, negative, and positive without endorsing those character traits. For example, I don't think it's healthy that James Bond buries his trauma in sleeping with a lot of different women. I just don't think that's healthy. There are some people in the world who think that that's healthy. They think that's being like an alpha or sigma male, and they think it's a great thing. Me personally, I think it's not a healthy coping mechanism. I understand when he does it for his mission, obviously, but there's a lot of times where he does it just because he can, and I don't really think that would help him as a person if he was real, right? It doesn't mean that I want that written out of the character, and I also totally understand that about the character. I mean, if you were a straight man, who wouldn't want to sleep with a bunch of beautiful women, right? So you understand that aspect of the character, and whether you connect with that aspect or not, it doesn't mean we need to change it. It doesn't mean you need to get rid of it. The same way that if you are a Black James Bond fan, I personally don't understand how it would be anything but mildly insulting to you that the only way people think you'll connect with the character is if they made him black like you. And in the same way that we talk about a character trait like that, I am largely Irish, Norwegian, and Swedish. There are some other things mixed in there like German, but James Bond is a Brit. He is from the United Kingdom. He's from England. He doesn't represent me. Like the Irish people are not the same as the English people, right? Just because he's white doesn't mean he's just like me. It's kind of like if I said, oh, well, you're from a country in Africa, you must be the exact same as somebody who's from Egypt. You must be the exact same as somebody who is from a different country in Africa. No, just because you have the same skin color or same complexion, it doesn't mean your heritage, your natural history, all these things are the same, right? This character doesn't have to be a self-insert for whoever we're talking about. This character does not have to be a self-insert for gay people, or a self-insert for black people, or a self-insert for anyone. This character doesn't have to necessarily represent any one group in order for people to be empathetic and understand stories enough to connect with this character, any more than someone should see a gay character and be like, oh, I can't possibly connect with that character because they're gay and I'm not gay. It goes both ways. So when you have a studio like Amazon mandating that this character become the mascot for a type of person, whether it's a skin color, a sexuality, whatever, that's not the character. You're just changing the character because of your studio mandate. And that's why you have Barbara Broccoli here reportedly calling them fucking idiots, because they want to capitalize, cash in, and change Bond to fit a popular narrative of the day. You never would have seen this 40 years ago, and why wouldn't you have seen it? Because things like being gay were not acceptable. People were pretty mean to black people, like more so than now. So now that it's popular, now that it's like we can make some money off this, you have a company like Amazon coming in mandating a change. If that is not offensive to you, if that is not something that you can see and look at and read between the lines and see the disgusting attitude behind that of now that this is a good thing, we'll make money off it, I don't really know what to tell you. It's just sad. Again, I think there are examples where it works fine, it's okay, and it doesn't do anything bad or good. It's just like, hey, this was a great person to play this role. Jeffrey Wright is an example I always use for Gordon. I think he was a great Commissioner Gordon. I don't think that there was anything bad or good about him being cast other than the fact that he was a good actor. But at the end of the day, it seems like Amazon wants to mandate these ideas. Essentially, Amazon wants Bond to just be gay, or they want Bond to just be a woman, or they just want Bond to have spin-off series. One of them floated was about Moneypenny, for example. These are things that to me is not actually... It's not actually something that is organic. It's not something that benefits the character in any way. I would argue that these are mandated changes that essentially you are pushing because you want money. And the way I know that is because usually when you mandate a change of like race or gender or whatever, and there's times where it works. Like, for example, M, I believe in the Ian Fleming novels, was originally male. And M in the movies for a very long time was female. And nobody really had a problem with that, right? So there are characters where you can do these kinds of things that no one cares. It's totally fine. It doesn't matter. But I do think that there are characters, especially title characters, where you start doing this, and it really rubs me the wrong way. To me, when you're lumping these ideas together, so you're lumping the idea of spin-offs, you're lumping the idea of, different things like that, money-making ventures for Amazon Prime with also make him gay or a woman, that to me tells me your actual reasoning behind it. It's because you want to milk people. Like, you want the controversy, you want the talk, you want all of the normal people who I would argue there's a lot of them who grift off topics like this. They're not even mad about them. It's just like, what's the woke thing of the day? I'm going to talk about it. You want the free publicity from them, because it really is free publicity. Anytime you talk about something, it's getting the word of mouth out there. And you want the free publicity from all the people who will go and see the movie just because now James Bond is a woman. You're not actually making a change because it fits the character. I also think it's kind of disrespectful in a way to Ian Fleming. Now, am I going to pretend Ian Fleming was a perfect person? I don't know. I haven't read every piece of Ian Fleming's work. So the point isn't, is Ian Fleming a saint, or should we ever touch his work? That's not the point. The point is, though, that we've kind of been going around and changing things long after the original writers and creators of characters are dead, so that they can't say anything about it. And I think it's kind of cowardly in a lot of ways, where you're like, oh, good, he died. Make the guy gay. It's like, well, when you actually read about Ian Fleming and you read about some of his perspective on this, he was in the military. He was actually a spy. He was in espionage. They're not things that really happened, but they're supposed to be in the spirit of that espionage type experience that he had. Same with the idea of womanizing. Same with the idea of, burying your loneliness or your problems or any of these things in different habits around you, be it alcohol, women, these different things, but also fighting for king and country, right? Trying to put that greater good above yourself, but then coping with the pain that brings in your life. And that's been true of pretty much every Bond interpretation ever. They've all gone through pain. There has been the Craig one, which is a little more introspective, a little more like deconstruction, which I know a lot of you don't like. But that's not the only one who's dealt with those things. You even look at characters like the Brosnan Bond when Paris dies in Tomorrow Never Dies, and that hurts him. Do you focus on it for the whole movie? No, but you can tell it's like that's a point of pain. So I think a lot of people look at Bond and they don't actually look at the underlying meanings of him, who he is, what he was based on, trying to keep it in the spirit of that character. Does that mean you can't change anything? No, but these are studio mandated changes. Get a gay actor in there or make him gay because people will talk about it. Oh, get a woman in there because people will talk about it. More money. Spin-offs, more money. Those kinds of things to me are not actually organic. They're just changes for the sake of changing things. And they also talked about this as well in here, basically saying that Barbara Broccoli does not trust algorithm-centric Amazon with a character she helped to mythologize through big screen storytelling and gut instinct. Essentially, that she believes that you need to work out these ideas, you need to hammer them out in the writer's room, especially with the director. You need to actually work on these things and take time to try and make these movies good. And we've seen what happens when you don't do that. We've seen things like Quantum of Solace. I enjoy it. Got a lot of problems, though, where there was a writer's strike. They weren't really able to hammer these things out as well. Daniel Craig himself ended up rewriting a bunch of scenes. We've seen what happens when you don't take that time. But instead of taking that time, apparently Amazon wants to just push it. They want to change things for the sake of it. They essentially just want to make money off of it. And that's the unfortunate thing about Amazon is, like, in some ways, they are good at bringing products to people conveniently, but in a lot of ways, they're just pulling the very, very cheapest and easiest way to make as much money as possible. And it's something my friend Nate has said, which is a problem with art now. You need business people to afford art, but business people should not be the core central driving force behind art. When you have that, it becomes soulless. And that's what I think a lot of these changes are, that they seem to be pushing behind the scenes. And even though there are things that I might disagree with Barbara Broccoli on from an outsider perspective, like I think that they've kept these movies too hush-hush over the years. I think they've treated it like a military secret, where like it feels like as a fan, you just don't have any idea what's happening. There are things I disagree with her on. I can tell that she cares about the character. I can't tell that about Amazon. I can't really tell that Amazon cares about anything except money. And to me, that's where this becomes a problem. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe. I have a Fortnite code, which is DJAY123. You want to support this channel? We have other channels, like we have a Let's Play channel where we've been playing through games together, hanging out. I'd like to play some Bond games over there eventually. We also, of course, as well, do have our own store, CosmoBunny.shop. This is a store where we sell coasters, keychains, trays, and more from recycled, repurposed comic book, manga, and magazine paper. These are images that were already printed essentially in books that are unable to be sold. And what we actually do with these is we recycle these books that are unable to be sold. We take some of that paper, we turn it transformatively into new art for your home. And then, of course, as well, we recycle the rest, keeping it out of landfills. So we appreciate you. Hope you have a fantastic day. And as always, everyone, stay shui.